Okay, I'd like to talk about dreams because I see dreams as sort of an access point to the subconscious material, to all the buried layers. Again, it's like an archaeological dig, and I wonder, is this what Eckhart Tolle means by the pain body? Doesn't really seem like a good term for it, because it's just so kind of oceanic. And anyways, so yeah, a key element in healing is being able to access deeper layers of our psyche, of our being. And as you begin to heal, you may notice that your sleep state becomes a battlefield. I mean, even before you do that, but even before you start really intentionally, consciously trying to heal. And it's because when you're asleep, some of the consciousness becomes a little bit less constricted. You're in a deeper dimension of your being. Some of the walls and the rigidity of waking life are not there, not present, and so you're immersed. You find there's different layers of dreaming as well, and dreaming is sort of a catch-all term and not the most clarifying or specific word for it, because there's different. Yeah, when you're asleep, there's various layers of consciousness that you can visit, that you can become awake to. And there's lucid dreaming. There's dreaming that seems to be more kind of symbolic and inchoate in a sense, more unconscious, and there's also more conscious ways of moving your awareness through the different layers and realms. And there's some dreams that seem that are more, you could say, there's just many different possibilities, I'll just say that. And but what's useful about it in the healing process is that dreams bring stuff out of the depths, and so you may well have very disturbing things that happen in that sleep state. We don't need to really engage with the reality or the relative reality of those experiences. What's beautiful, what's nice about this whole process is it's sort of simplifying. There's so many kind of speculative avenues that can be interesting to go down, but they can also be kind of a trap, and you don't really need to go down them. But all kinds of stuff can happen on this path, on this journey. Let's just say that. Many different wild things can happen. But it's always the same approach. It's always the same path. It's always the same. I keep saying the word process. I'm like overusing that word. The same technique, in a sense, you could say. Same. Anyways. That, let's say you have a very disturbing experience, shockingly disturbing experience or mildly disturbing experience. And you can even come to do this at some level during the sleep state, but when you wake up, depending on the lucidity of your recall and your availability to working, if you have time to do this, upon waking, you'll have, a more or less complete recall, a partial or a more complete recall of what happened. And that'll be, again, sort of the superficial level of the narrative of the dream, the contents of the dream experience, the images, what happened sort of sequentially in the dream. And that's the kind of uppermost level, is the content. No matter what it was, it's just content happening with awareness. Who you are ultimately is back behind all of it. Who you are ultimately, you could say, is all of it, form and the formless, but you're sort of at one stage of the journey, and it remains true throughout. Who you are is kind of at a deeper level, let's just say it that way, is back behind all of it. You're the pure awareness, you're the pure consciousness, untouched by any of that. And so the more you move back towards those layers, the easier it is for them to release. It's about coming into your root identity ultimately and living from there. But that's the only reason I mention that, is that it's useful to know that you don't have, it's not about analyzing the dreams. People talk about, there's dream work. Many traditions really you come across, dream yoga, Tibetan Buddhism, Carl Jung, probably Sigmund Freud. I don't know. They definitely had a map and a model of the unconscious. And I know Jung talked about the shadow. Maybe that's where we get the term from. So he definitely recognized all of this. But he talked about, the significance of dreams. And I think why it was significant for them is because it was a pure, more direct connection with the unconscious. And those deeper drives, that unconscious stuff, is really what is moving us and why we become reactive, and all the kind of distortions and complications of our life emotionally and eventually externally kind of originate at that level. So it's important to access it. So dreams are good because they allow that stuff to surface a little bit more readily. But thankfully, blessedly, gotta slow down here, man. There's an NBA player that I really like named Jonathan Kuminga. And his legs are just like so much faster than his brain sometimes, or his ability to dribble. He's definitely improved a lot. He's a great player in so many ways, but it's funny because his legs just go flying down the court sometimes. It's like you can't keep up with him. Sometimes my mind is like that. There's so much I want to say, and it all wants to come out at once. Just relax. So our dreams give us access, but we don't need to engage and analyze. I don't know that that's what Jung was prescribing, but fortunately, you don't need to do that. It's not an analytical process. It's the same process that I tried to describe in other videos. You just go straight into the gold, and the gold is the feeling tone. So whatever the dream experience, there's an overriding vibrational quality, an overriding tone. Could even say emotional tone. I sort of hesitate to say that. I think it's a little bit deeper. But there's an energetic signature, and you go just directly into that. that's what's wanting to be liberated, because the subtler gives rise to the more manifest. The formless gives rise to the form. So you want to, the deeper you go into formlessness, the more essential, that's where the more essential healing work and release work will happen. And it's sort of as if the dreams and how they manifest and all the content of the dream, the seed of all that is the vibration. It's like the seed tone, feeling tone, that gives rise to the content. And so you want to extract, you want to go to the seed and dissolve it at the root, dissolve it at the seed. And so no matter what the experience is, how crazy or disturbing or whatever, mildly uncomfortable, it's really just the seeds, it's really just that repressed stuff coming to the surface, asking to be liberated. And how you can skillfully and more efficiently do that is just going right to the point of origin. It's like in the massage analogy, going right into the center of the pain, and you liberate it that way. That's how you get it to release. That's how you get your consciousness to untie itself. So it's always the same method. A bit of an unsavory way of putting it, but it's like you're sort of popping zits, spiritually speaking. You're allowing them to that's not the best, that's not a very good metaphor, but and so it all becomes grist for the mill, to use another Ram Dass term. I think he has a book called Grist for the Mill, where you never can really say that you love having awful stuff come up on one level, because it's awful. And again, I wouldn't design it this way. I don't know why it is this way. But you've got this storehouse of all this sort of putrefying crap. That's too strong of a way to put it, but yeah, you've got this storehouse of all this stuff coming up. And you know that it coming up is a good sign on some level. Who you are is grace. Ultimately, you're grace. You are grace itself. You are light itself. You are the movement of creation. And that gets constricted in so many ways. And so the work really is to dissolve those constrictions, release those constrictions, unwind them, so that grace, who you are, can move more naturally with less restriction. And you can sort of evoke, if you don't have time or don't feel like working with an experience you had while you were dreaming, you can just sort of evoke it at a later time. And by evoke, I just mean call forth the feeling tone. What was that overriding feeling tone? And just go into it and just feel it and just dissolve it from within, merge with it, metabolize, digest. So many good words for that process. Another good access point, maybe this is a whole nother video, but maybe not, I don't think I have too much to say, is the body. You have many bodies, you have many levels to your body, to your being. Everything is being. You who you are is being on an essential level, but even on the sort of relative levels, it's all just still being, which is really crazy. Spirit, your body itself, the apparent physical is still just spirit, which is a wild thing to say. It's just more crystallized, more differentiated, more dense. But the universal substance is God. And how could it be otherwise, really? It's like that term ontology. This is a bit of a side note. But doing the, I don't want to say that, doing the weave, like Donald Trump talks about, I weave, I do the weave. But that's kind of, what extemporaneous speaking is about, really. But what was I saying? Oh, ontology, the study of being. Your ontology becomes very simple because everything is ontos, everything is being. It's like the one taste. Is that a Zen term? I don't know. But it's because this surface level of multiplicity of forms, and I'm like channeling all these different teachers. I think that's Rupert Spira. The multiplicity of forms, apparent multiplicity of forms, it's all seamless, and it all just seamlessly, as you move down the layers, goes back to the ocean, goes back to formlessness, goes back to who you are, essentially your identity, your root identity. But it's all you also, you can also say that. But since we're kind of so trapped in the uppermost layers, you kind of want to counterbalance it when you're talking about these matters by emphasizing that you are beingness. Yeah, you could say you're all these things, but to kind of counterbalance the ways that our consciousness has been imbalanced towards absorption into the more superficial layers. It's good to be reassured and reminded that your beingness itself, but an access point for that is the body, the apparent physical body. And that's just because you start where you are. Here we are in this apparent physical reality. And you find it like in your throat, in your chest, in your stomach. I feel that right now. So you can access, I don't know about so many, but there are different access points like dreams. I started out talking about dreams as one. In waking consciousness, just surrendering, just stopping, just totally coming to rest is a way of accessing this material. You can kind of intentionally find in your body places of discomfort and constriction. That can be an access point. But you also notice as these things release that they come up out of certain regions of the body. The heart center, like in the center of the spine, for sure. The belly, I guess this is where people talk. I don't really like talking about chakras. I don't know why. I guess maybe that's a personal thing, but I don't really. But yeah, there are kind of in the central channel, the central part of your body, It's like certain emotional states, certain energetic states have a corresponding place in the body, certain memories, certain fixations. And you'll also notice that consciousness sort of clarifies and wakes up from the top down. It sort of descends down through the body. There's just all these developmental processes that seem inherent, these different stages, developmental processes, directional movements that seem inherent in this reality, in this journey. And yeah, there is, and it's almost, this could be kind of a tip or a pointer maybe, but it's like this present reality, you're on the surface, it's almost physical, kind of spatial, locational, that as you descend down, one of the movements you can make is falling backwards. It's like, I guess that's the backward step maybe in Zen, but your consciousness, it's like the layers of depth are almost kind of behind you, it feels like, in some sense. And it's like it condenses, it crystallizes directionally towards the surface. That's sort of an abstract thing. It's not really abstract if you're experiencing it, and it might be a helpful thing to explore, is to take your awareness. So experimenting with your awareness, you can move your awareness into different parts of your body, right? If I say feel your toes, feel your hands, there's a capacity in consciousness to do that. You can bring your awareness into a part of your body, or you can focus your awareness. It's like you've got this large aperture, which is consciousness unbounded, and one of the capacities or functions within consciousness is it can, the aperture can close down. You can become more concentrated, like a floodlight versus a laser beam, right? And so that's like a sixth sense is awareness, and you can play with it, and you can get a sense of it just through simple movement, into your hands, to your feet, to your face, to an object externally. In the same way, you can move your awareness backwards. And that's another way, because the material is sort of back. It's like it's in the background rather than the foreground. So you can pull consciousness back, and you can keep pulling it back and back. But sometimes that's really how it works for me, is when I talk about finding the feeling tone, it's usually kind of spatially backwards. I don't know that that's going to be a universal, sort of hesitating to really say this too strongly, but it might be useful. It is for me, as I sort of you can pull your consciousness backwards, and the feeling tone is kind of, is further back.